If you want to buy an Airbnb in Mexico, then this video is for you because I interviewed Cathie LoCicero. She specializes in helping people who don't live in Mexico get customizable insurance for their property. We cover everything you need to know about insurance, what things to protect for, and what things you should add to your policy just in case if things go wrong. And if you're looking to actually buy a property in Mexico, I suggest you download my free step-by-step guide on how to do it. And if you're serious about investing, reach out to Cathie. I left her website link down low. You can get a free quote from her website, and she'll get you all the information you need about getting started with insurance in Mexico. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do so everyone can get to know you a little bit.
My name is Cathie Smith LoCicero. I have two last names, but since very few people, except probably Antonio, can spell LoCicero, I go by Cathie Smith Insurance in Cabo San Lucas. I've been here for over 30 years, and I came actually to sell real estate here, although insurance is my real profession. And my late husband and I had insurance agencies in San Diego, California, and in Tacoma, Washington. And I've been licensed in Washington State, California, Arizona, and the entire country of Mexico for both the personal lines and commercial lines. And actually, insurance is my passion. And in this hot real estate market that we have going on right here, right now in Los Cabos, I'm very, very busy insuring homes for people, homes and condominiums for people at this time.
Awesome. So you can help people get insurance on a house that they want to live in Mexico, but also a rental property as well?
Yes, on both. And rentals are huge right now. And one of my biggest markets right now actually is for people that are getting loans to purchase new homes and condominiums, or seconds, or not even a second, but like a construction loan on their equity in their homes to remodel their homes, because Airbnb and VRBO and all of that are really making people a lot of money, not only here in Los Cabos, but every tourist destination in Mexico.
Yeah, I can imagine. Property values are cheaper and the tourist demand is nearly endless.
It is endless.
Cool. So comparatively to like the US, I know in the US, you need insurance if you're buying a house, basically, unless if you buy it cash, but even then you still should have insurance. Do you need insurance in Mexico, and how is it different than the US?
Well, if you have a loan, of course, you need to insure it because you've got a lien holder on it. But most people who are prudent and are investing money here in Mexico or anywhere would want to insure their own homes. And I think the difference here, because where we are along the beaches in Mexico, we're more vulnerable. If you're from the middle of the United States, you really don't think about hurricanes. Unless you're from the West Coast, you don't really think about earthquakes. So we've got certain zones of Mexico that are vulnerable to hurricanes, like here in Los Cabos, we're vulnerable to hurricanes. Over on the east side of Mexico, Cancun, Playa del Carmen, and those areas. And of course, Puerto Vallarta, Mazatlan, all around on the perimeters where the beaches were vulnerable. So it just depends on what vulnerability we have. And there is a national map of Mexico for insurance companies. So regardless of what, I'm an independent agent, so I deal with several different companies for homeowners insurance, but they all have the same criteria for hurricanes. So if you're close to the water, here in this area, your deductible will be 5% of the insured value of your house. And if you're further back, it will be 2% of the insured value of your house. Now, if you were in Mexico City, I insure people over there. Actually, hurricane is not really a real division of an insurance policy. It's called hydrometeorological events. And it's a mouthful in English, let alone in Spanish. I have to say it very slowly in Spanish, but that means to do with water, hydro to do with water. So it could be a hurricane, it could be a tropical storm, it could be a flood, it could be a tsunami. So all of those things are included in hydrometeorological. And then earthquakes and volcanoes are in one section, which makes people laugh. But we do have a few volcanoes here in Mexico. I have never insured anyone who's purchased a residence near a volcano, but should they, I can insure them. They're going to pay more for their insurance.
Okay, so there's things to watch out for to make sure you have in your insurance policy are things like hurricane protection, things like earthquake protection if you happen to be in some of those zones. You mentioned tsunamis, tropical storms, and then also if you happen to buy near a volcano, then also a volcano, correct?
Right.
Did I cover everything there?
You covered everything. And some people choose to self-insure, that's fine as well. Some people just want a basic policy. If you're going to rent out your property, wherever it is, whatever it is, the most important part of that policy is liability insurance, because if you have a guest, whether they pay or not, someone slips and falls and hurts themselves inside of your home, of course, you want to be covered to pay their medical expenses, as well as your own liability. Say your dog runs out in the street and bites the neighbor, that's your own personal liability. You're covered for that sort of thing as well. But for an investment, for a rental, the liability part of the policy is the most important to the homeowner.
Okay, cool. So in terms of the differences so I'm assuming, like you mentioned, there is a special insurance difference for rental properties, whether they're short-term or long-term versus just living in. There's a cost difference and a breakdown difference, correct?
There's different sections of a policy. So
Okay.
that just determines where we're gonna place that. And it's really important, because if you say you're not going to rent it out and then you do, then you're not covered for a rental. So it behooves the person to say, yes, I'm going to rent it out. And we've got some of my policies charge more if it's a rental, and some of them don't charge more if it's a rental, but I always recommend more in the section for loss of use, because under extraordinary expenses on an insurance policy, say, because I'm in Cabo, I always go back to hurricane. We had a big one in 2015, and we'll probably be talking about it for the next 30 years. But if you've got renters in your home or your condominium, or even if they have a kitchen fire, if your home or condo becomes uninhabitable while repairs are being made and you've got someone in it, then you've got to pay to move them, and you've already taken their money and they're already here. So you want to make sure that you have enough insurance to be able to move them to a similar quality accommodation while repairs are being made, or to reimburse them, which would be loss of rents.
Okay. All right. So there are some differences there. Now, is there anything different between getting insurance for a long-term rental and a short-term rental?
I always recommend, if it's a long-term rental, that besides your own homeowner's policy, that we issue your long-term renter their own renter's policy to protect you in case while they are renting your home, that they do damage to your home, so that you're covered from them, because you have a lovely home, you rent it out to somebody, they smoke, they promised they wouldn't, they set the interior on fire. The building's not gonna, these homes where I live around this area, they're all built out of concrete. They're not burning down. But the insides can burn. I tell people, it's not gonna burn down, but it can burn up. So you want to make sure, if you're going to do a long-term rental, that you require that your renter gets an insurance policy as well to protect any damage that they do to your property, so that you're not stuck with that.
Ah, okay. So renter's insurance then. And I'm assuming you can help people with that as well.
I can help people with that at all. And as a fallback, if they did do damage, you're covered. But it's just like your car. If I loan you my car and you crash into somebody else, hopefully you've got your own insurance is going to pay for who you ran into, and I don't have to make a file on a claim on my policy for who you ran into. It's the same thing with the renter. If you've got a renter in your home and they damage your house, yes, you can claim it on your own policy, but why do you want to go through all that hassle when they're the ones who did it? Let them make the claim and deal with it. Just you have to make sure that they fulfill. But just
I see what
same
you're saying.
sort of thing. Same sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you determine the price of an insurance policy? Like what goes all into that?
We start with the dwelling itself. So when you buy a home, you are not required to insure your purchase price, because your purchase price includes the prestige of your community, your view, the land underneath it, how much land underneath it. All of that is not something that you can't insure that. I always tell people, only God can insure the dirt. You insure the structure itself. So one thing that makes it much faster and easier for the client and myself is when they do have a mortgage, that the mortgage company runs an appraisal. And then I can read, the appraisal is pages and pages long, and they're very complete, but it breaks down to the square meters of construction and what the reconstruction cost is. So all I have to do is to take that amount and translate it from pesos to US dollars. And then we know exactly today, if your house went out, it fell down in an earthquake or washed away in a hurricane, exactly what that would cost. Otherwise, we have to kind of determine. I'm not a certified appraiser, and it's against the law in Mexico for an agent to tell you how much your house is worth. So all I can tell people is your neighbors are have been insuring it about $150 a square foot or $200 a square foot, or maybe 125. I can tell them what your neighbors have done, but individuals can run their own appraisal. Generally, the realtor is the one who knows that better than me, because the real estate agents are out and about in the community all the time. And they're not only dealing with buyers and sellers, they're also dealing with the developers that are developing these big, beautiful communities. So we determine that. And then, and I always make a point, please, let's work on that, because I don't want people to over-insure and pay more for their policies. I tell them, save it and buy me a margarita when you get here. I'll be happy to help you with that. So we need to know what it would cost to reconstruct that. We need to know what year it was built, of course, how many square feet it has, what they have outdoor, like swimming pools and solar panels on the roof and stuff like that. Their budget, if it's brand new, I ask them, what is your budget for your furnishings? Because if it's brand new, people they don't have furniture in it yet. They're not going to close until next month. So we take the number that they are budgeted. And then every year at renewal, I do go over these policies with the folks so that we can adjust those. How much they want to insure for burglary and theft. And generally, they don't need to, in our area, insure a lot. I've got a link inside of my website where people can go in and put in the value of the house, and then it will just give them ideas of what to plug in the rest of the way. But generally, if you've got a $500,000 house, it's unusual if you're going to put in 50% of that as furnishings, but it's going to tell you, suggest $250,000. And then if you're going to put $250,000 of furnishings, that will suggest you insure $125,000 for burglary. Nobody's going to get in your house and take $125,000. I only know of one time years ago where some guys were smart and they came in with a truck and had on overalls and emptied out an unoccupied house, and the neighbors thought that the owners had sold the house, and they had just gotten once in 30 something years. So that doesn't happen. So I try to tailor it down, and I talk to the people and consult with them, and referrals build my business. And that I don't advertise at all anymore. All of my business comes from referrals, because other homeowners say, talk to Cathie because she'll work with you and tailor it to you specifically. So all of those things go into it. Like I said, the liability amount, if you're not going to rent it out, you can go with a lower liability. I always joke with people when it comes to liability. I say, are your friends mostly Americans or Canadians? And they'll say, why? And I'll say, well, I remember the president of Chubb, Mexico, telling me long ago, Americans are the most litigious people on the planet Earth. So, but if most of your friends are Canadian, and then my Canadian clients tell me, oh, we would never sue anyone. If I fell in your house, I would just think I was clumsy. So I joke about it, but we can go.
It's true.
We can go from 100,000 to $2 million. So so we've got a big wide range, and I leave that up to the people when it comes to liability. And of course, when it comes to burglary and theft, I say, if somebody broke into your house, how much do you think they could get away with? But ultimately you're telling me. And then then we talk about it. So that's how
of course.
I work it out. Yeah.
I'm sure most people under budget until something bad happens, and then they're like, we need the insurance. Because I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, no one's going to break in. And then when someone breaks in, then you have to worry about that. Okay. We kind of covered parts of this, but other than the differences between the rentals and the different natural disasters we could watch out for, what are some typical things I guess you mentioned burglary, renter's insurance, certain things that might be inside of insurance policy that are pretty standard for someone buying a house?
One thing that's kind of hard to figure out, and it doesn't tell us this in an appraisal, is the value of the glass in your home. Because most of our homes here, because it's such a sunny place, and well, Mexico, all of Mexico is such a sunny place. And so we have a lot of windows. We have a lot of windows. So, I had one window, I teased the kid, he threw a baseball or no, hit a baseball, broke one of my windows. And I just went out and the kids were running. I go, that's okay. I'm not going to blame you, but I want that kid's name. I want to know where you are in 10 or 15 years, because you're going to be in the major league. But it can be an accidental breakage, or it can be like when we have hurricanes or tropical storms, the most things that break our windows aren't actually the storm itself. To my own experience, it's the stuff that people leave outside that the wind picks up in the storm and blows through our window. So I always tell people, if you're going to go away for the summer, please make sure that all of your outside furniture is inside and locked up, because it's not going to just break your windows. It's going to, break your neighbor's windows too. And of course, it can knock down trees and come into your glass. So I asked a builder what he would tell me to give people like a rough idea. So I give people a rough idea of a cost, like it could be from 250 to 350, because all of our policies are more for the snowbirds and the foreigners. That's what I can insure anyone, but I specialize in the expat and the foreign market in US dollars. So he said between 250 and 350 US dollars per square meter. He said for the good glass, including the framing and the installation. So I just tell people, figure that out. A square meter is just about the same thing as a square yard. Just visualize it and come up with, So I help them on the glass, because glass is and then most people don't realize that the glass inside of the home, if it's fixed to the walls, is part of the dwelling's glass as well. So you might have a beautiful front door that is, that etched sand stuff or leaded glass, or glass enclosures on your bathtub or your showers, your mirrored wardrobe doors. All of those things are part of glass. And most people don't think about that, but they can break and they can be expensive to replace.
Okay, cool. All right. Two last things. Was one, if someone wants to work with you, where's the best place that they could find you or contact you?
They can contact me. My website is CathieSmithInsurance.com, but I spell my name Cathie, which was cute when I was 13, but I've been explaining it ever since. But I did buy like everything you can buy on GoDaddy, every way you can spell Cathie. So if somebody messes up, it'll still get directed to me, but it's CathieSmithInsurance.com is my website. Under homeowners there, you can actually go in and quote out any home. The most important thing I need to know in your home, because I insure people all over Mexico, is the postal code, just like your zip code or your postal code back home, because that tells us the territory that you're in. It identifies the territory that you're in.
Okay.
And then my email is the same as just Cathie, Cathie, at CathieSmithInsurance.com. And I am on Facebook. Cathie Smith Insurance on Facebook is my business page. But I have more followers on my personal page, because everybody loves my cats and my hats. So on my regular Facebook, I'm Cathie LoCicero, and I'll let Antonio spell that for you.
I will put it in the description for everyone watching this, because it's not that difficult, but my last name's Cuciniello, so
yes.
I'm used to difficult last names.
Right.
Okay, last question. Is there anything the audience watching this or I should know about insurance in Mexico that we haven't discussed yet that's really important to know? List it all out here, because you're our guide.
Well, the policy, I deal with several companies, as I mentioned. One company that I deal with more than any other, because it is more flexible, but depending on the person, I know which way to go. The policies that I issue, regardless of the company, you get a courtesy English translation. So you know what you're insured for, which otherwise you're not going to have, even with insurance companies that you might find online. You're not going to get the courtesy English translation unless you get it from me or someone like me. If you can, well, you're not going to find anyone like me, but similar maybe somewhere. And the structure of the policies that we have structured the declarations page, the front page, so that it pretty much matches your homeowner's insurance back home, section by section. So we go dwelling, contents, liability, down like that. So you really know, because so many people will just get an insurance policy, and if you're not fluent in Spanish, you're not going to know what you have.
Yeah.
And it's
Okay, so
especially confusing if it's in pesos. Ours are all in dollars, US dollars.
so yours is in US dollars and in English to help all those English speakers out there
Right,
understand. Huge
right.
benefit of working with you.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think that's it, Cathie. Thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you very much, and talk to you soon.
See ya. Special thanks to Cathie for actually doing this and answering all the questions. Really appreciate it, Cathie. Now, if you want to learn more about investing in Mexico, then click the video on screen here, because I interview Lolo, who's a realtor and property manager, and he'll answer all the questions you have about property management and buying a property for Airbnb in Mexico.